Okay, we had the new parts come through from the factory. We'll get them on the car ahead of FP1.
Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2018 career mode, episode number 153 today for the Monaco Grand Prix in Season 8. If you guys didn't miss the previous episode, the Spanish Grand Prix, then be sure to go check the one out before you see this one. Bit of last lap drama and controversy potentially for the Alfa racing team, but spoiler alert, it ended pretty okay, I would say, the last episode. So yeah, be sure to check that one out. But before we get into the rest of this episode, then just want to give out a little plug to a vlog video that went out yesterday of my VIP up-close, super up-close experience with Alfa Racing at F1 testing 2019. I went over to the Circuit de Catalunya and Barcelona for basically one day to experience what was ended up being a crazy amount of F1 action, getting millimeters away from the Alfa Racing C38 2019 Challenger, and also getting super close to the reigning world champion Lewis Hamilton at one point with some mad shots from cars exiting the pit lane. It was a really epic day and turned out to be a really awesome video in my opinion, so be sure to go check that video out if you haven't already, guys, on my channel. There'll be a link in the description on the top line and also annotation on the top right. I do implore you to go check that if you have not. It was a very cool experience and a really awesome video to make in the end of it. But let's get into it then, talking about the rest of the weekend, the race weekend here at the Monaco Grand Prix. So we come here to this weekend with some upgrades. You can see we have caught up even more to Red Bull Racing. Renault have plateaued a little bit there at the top end, and Mercedes makes some small adjustments, and then you got the other teams kind of battling away with their own midfield battles, McLaren and Toro Rosso, and then the other three of Haas, Force India and Williams down there. So for us, you know, it's been a very good last two episodes. You know, the momentum's been there with us, but Monaco obviously is a very different circuit, and I expect Red Bull to maybe come back a little bit, especially with the upgrades they've made potentially. And so as we go into qualifying, unfortunately we started off on the back foot really.
We seem to be having some software issues at the moment. Sit tight for a few minutes while we reboot some things, okay?
So a little bit of a delay to our qualifying proceedings with an electrical fault, and so just have to sit here for like 2.5 minutes there and watch the cars go out. So there might be a bit of traffic potentially on our laps, because now we're going to be a bit out of sync basically with everyone in the Grand Prix circuit, because everyone's going to go out pretty much in the next 2 minutes, and I'm going to be having to wait a further kind of half minute until I can try and spot a gap maybe. So we wait very patiently all the way to right to the end. You can see a lot of cars, probably half the grid or even more than half the grid was already out there whilst I finished off those faults and was able to go out once again. But we get running then on our first run. Pretty handy first sector. Felt pretty good actually. The car felt quite stiff, just like it did back at the Chinese Grand Prix. So as in initial turn-in, and the kind of feeling mid-apex of the car was very kind of rigid and not very, you know, susceptible to my movements of the steering wheel, but the grip levels were there, so the car wasn't actually kind of, you know, getting away on the rear end. Just felt a little bit tricky to actually move around maybe. It wasn't light on its toes as I wanted it to be, but still had a decent run on that first lap, at least I thought so. But we're down in P11 then, and Leclerc's gone a little bit better. We did match him straight away on that first lap, but then he went better, and so it's our turn to go one better. I think he's about maybe 5-6 tenths ahead of us, so we have a lot of time to maybe find on this second flying lap. I think he has not gone out yet, so he might well find more time right at the end, obviously, with the kind of annoying kind of AI fast forwarding kind of thing that happens right now in career mode. But we come through to the last two corners then. Raskas and Vettel right ahead of us there. They're not going to hold us up too much though. We swing through on the last corner, dancing the car through as the rear end steps out a little bit. A bit of a screen freeze for good measure across the line, but up into P4, which I was very happy about. But unfortunately, towards the end of the session, 3 minutes to go, and everyone just went a little bit fast, and we're down to P7 then, matching my teammate though in P8. But I got to say, this was a very weird qualifying session, and I feel like this is the point where I can say the game is a little bit broken, because as you can clearly see, everything's 2x2. It literally is Noah's Ark here at Monaco. Now, obviously, that's understandable at the last episode, Catalunya, because obviously everyone knows at Catalunya the car is the decisive factor at Catalunya, and that's why a lot of the time you do see 2x2 at the Spanish Grand Prix. But Monaco is obviously all about the drivers, and I found it very odd that even me and my teammate were like this, because usually obviously, you know, the player can do something a little bit different to the AI. So I was very shocked to even see me and my teammate line up 2x2 like that, and so the entire grid is 2x2. So yeah, I hope this is not a common occurrence. I hope we can rock up to the next episode and not have something like this, because this is very much a bit of a broken kind of system in the game of everyone simulating to literally the same as their teammate, or not the same time, but at least it's near enough to be on the same row. So very, very odd occurrences at the moment here. So I don't know, some alien action maybe as well playing into it. We'll have to see really, but let's just go to the grid and get things moving then. We're going to have a bit of a tough job from P7 in terms of traffic and trying to, battle Fernando Alonso, the man we're trying to catch in the Drivers' Championship, but nonetheless we'll try our best. But first of all, let's just go to the grid and see if there's going to be any penalties to maybe shake up this kind of 2x2 order.
A proper road race, and in the true meaning of the word. That was how Mr. Monaco, the late great Graham Hill, once described this iconic event. The cars we drive have come a long way in the intervening half-century, but still we race on those same public roads beside the Mediterranean Sea. There's no victory more coveted than that of the Monaco Grand Prix. The prestigious Circuit de Monaco then, it's not all that dissimilar today to the layout that made its debut almost a century ago. It's 2 miles and 19 corners through the streets of Monte Carlo, and although the average lap speed of around 93 miles per hour is the lowest of the season, the tiny margins for error make it the natural habitat of the safety car. Anthony Davidson joins me again for the race today. Let's talk about Haas. We have a number of changes to the aerodynamic regulations this year, and the signs haven't looked good for them so far in terms of getting to grips with those changes.
There are a few downcast looks within the team this weekend. I think they've been hit fairly hard by the new regs. But this is only the first step down a long road of development, and even if they don't maximise their points today, there are plenty more up for grabs this season.
And so with that, let's have a look at the starting grid ahead of the Monaco Grand Prix, the duel in the Formula 1 calendar for Season 8 of my F1 2018 career mode. And I'll be very shocked to see if it's not 2x2. Noah's Ark down the order as it's a front row lockout for the Red Bull Hondas. Pierre Gasly on pole position with Carlos Sainz in second place. My championship rival for now, third place Fernando Alonso with Hamilton P4. All Mercedes next row, and then all Alfa Romeo, and then you can guess it, all Ferrari, Sebastian Vettel, Esteban Ocon out of the top 10. Then it's all McLaren, all, not actually all Toro Rosso, Van Dorn, Magnussen then, with Grosjean P15, Perez then next, then Bottas, Lance Stroll, and Kimi Räikkönen on 19th place, with Sergei Sorokin the only man with a grid penalty that breaks the order down to last place on the grid. So apart from one Russian then down last place with a grid penalty, everyone is pretty much 2x2 still on this grid. So from P7, like I said, you're going to be a bit of traffic to maybe get through, and so this will be a bit of a tough order at Monaco. It's looking like a default is a one stop from hypers to the super soft, so that probably tells me that AI will also have a default one stop, which is curious because I think that's the first time it's happened. It's taken 8 seasons, but now the default strategy is a one stop, because up until even last season the default still said a 2 stop was the best way to go about it, but no, the one stop is finally there on our actual screen to see there. So we're going to lower the fuel and we're going to go for this one stop, but if everyone else is going to do that as well, it might be a very classic Monaco Grand Prix and very tricky to pass. But here we go, they're going to have to try our best as we go to 5 red lights to the Monaco Grand Prix. 4 lights are out and we're underway. It's actually a rocketing start for us there. A great start against Nico Hülkenberg, but into turn 1 we get very, very close to his left-hand side there, as I couldn't really find the space on the left-hand side of Verstappen, and it got to the point where I was either going to have a crash there into turn 1 or I had to lift off and let Hülkenberg kind of have the room and the space. And now up the hill into Casino Square, having to give Leclerc some room also on the left-hand side after being really put off by Hülkenberg. So that was really a shame, because that was such a good start, probably the best start I've had this season so far, nay, probably the entire career mode really, but I just couldn't get alongside Verstappen enough in the Mercedes car, in the second Mercedes car, to actually warrant to keep on the left hand side there. And if I just kept my nose in, I definitely would have probably been spewing off into the barrier and the wall along with Hülkenberg. So that was kind of some more clever driving in terms of just surviving for the entire Grand Prix rather than some lap 1 glory. But now as we move on to lap 2, having already some frustrations there behind Hülkenberg, locking up into the swimming pool section as we get very close to Hülkenberg, and clearly our car has some more race pace than the Silver Arrow, but I just can't get enough time and space to the inside there. And again, we're going to try and maybe line up something at Rasgas this time, try the infamous down the inside pass. No, this time not worked. Last minute I backed out of that and went to the outside of Hülkenberg, and even that didn't work out with the lock up on the both tyres actually to slow the thing down at Rasgas. So right now Hülkenberg is being a real pain in my race. You can see on the mini-map there, look at the gap that already has been built from Verstappen in the second Mercedes car to the first of the two Renaults. The two Red Bulls still 1 and 2, and the two Renaults still 3 and 4. But again, I tried for the second time in Rasgas, and that time got even closer to hitting the barrier and having a crash, and now getting a little bit flustered on the rear end there. So at the moment, things are going from bad to worse in terms of trying to get past Hulkenberg. And on lap 7, pretty much, I've had enough. I'm going to come in for a pit stop here a little bit earlier. My engineer, though, has called me in and said this would be a viable option to come in this early. And I've got to hope that he's done the calculations correct and get into some clean air and try and jump Hulkenberg on pure pace on the undercut. Because if not, this is going to be probably one of the most frustrating Grand Prix I've ever driven, because that Mercedes car, to be fair to Hulkenberg, he's done a really good job. He made his car so wide, but I clearly have more pace than him. So here we go now, coming out of the pit lane. P17 this is, as the Force India just flies past us there. And so we do have a decent amount of clean air. We might have to do some overtaking on some slower cars, but all in all, hopefully we'll have some pace to get down around Monaco and try and undercut Hulkenberg. And so now you can see as we move on to lap 8, we've actually caught up some traffic already. Sergio Perez, we go down the main straight. A rarity this is. DRS overtake on the outside of turn 1 there. It's going to be a sweet move as Perez just leaves us enough room. But a very tasty move, very satisfying move to make on the exit of that apex there. And like I said, rarity, because I hardly usually ever get a good enough run to get a move done to turn 1 around Monaco on F1 2018 the game. So very nice one. A dive bomb then to the inside, doing a bit of a Sergio Perez from 2013 on Perez's teammate, no less, Valtteri Bottas, and the other Force India down the inside of that chicane outside the tunnel and up into P14 then, really making the most of this car and the fresher rubber on the super softs. Despite having being on the slowest tyre available this weekend, the car going well and obviously a lot better than all these midfield cars or lower end cars, as we now make a move to the inside of Magnussen again. DRS down the inside of turn 1, and so we're actually finding a lot of pace on the main straight for once in our lives on this game, and all the moves are being made to turn 1, so it's becoming a favourite of mine in this race, it looks like, compared to Raskas, where we've had a total of 0 moves at Raskas. It's no longer the infamous Raskas down the inside pass, it seems to be the turn 1 pass round the outside or down the inside with DRS assistance. And here we go to the inside again of a second Haas car of Romain Grosjean there up into P9. So looking very good. We have already jumped Hulkenberg, I can tell you, on lap 13. He's already made his pit stop and we're already ahead of him. And now we are going to jump Esteban Ocon there as he finally makes his pit stop. There are a few other cars left out there on on slower tyres they started on, a la Brendan Hartley ahead of us in the McLaren car, so we're starting to chase off them, and the same goes for the Renault and Red Bull cars, who have been held up a little bit by the likes of the Toro Rossos, who actually went a little bit long on their tyres. But here we go now, catching up to the Kiwi man in the papaya orange McLaren. Down the inside we go into turn 1, across the curbing on lap 16, up into P7 now, and so Hamilton is the next car up, as you've got the 2 Renaults and 2 Red Bulls at the moment being held up a little bit. But as we go through, it is then Pierre Gasly in first place, then leading the Grand Prix. Second place, Ricciardo out of sync of this Grand Prix. Then you've got Carlos Sainz in third place, then a Toro Rosso P4, and then the 2 Renaults of Fernando Alonso, my championship rival for now, and Lewis Hamilton, who is obviously the next car up the road from me. And so I'm trying to do my best job at wrestling and dancing this car through the streets of Monaco and trying to catch these guys. And the traffic is helping me. That Toro Rosso car is holding up the Renaults, and so we should have a good run, and we are going to catch up to Hamilton eventually as we move on to the end of lap 16. And here we go now, Hamilton is there, and we're going to set our sights on a move if we can and catch him napping. If we go through the swim pool section, catching a little bit more, you can see that Toro Rosso is really not helping out Alonso and Hamilton. And so here we go into Raskas. We're going for the move on the outside this time, a late lunge, and we have got the space. Hamilton gives us the room, we give him the room in the last corner there around the outside. Bit of contact though, and oh, Hamilton's out the Grand Prix, smashed his tyre on the inside face of the last corner there, but I gave him so much room. So let's have a look there at the replay. I'm adamant I gave him so much room there. Yeah, I gave him so much room, and he just by his own accord smashed the right front of his car, and he actually hit me and nearly sent me into the wall, because his left front hit me and nearly ping-ponged me into that wall on the left-hand side. And then after that, looks like one of the McLaren cars, I think of Hartley maybe, hit Hamilton there. But look at that, the amount of room I gave him was pretty mad actually. There was actually so much room, he could have squeezed me so much more. Instead he turns in too early and hits the right hand side of the wall there. So that's kind of, I'm going to say that's all his fault. I gave him as much room as you can do at Monaco around the last corner when you're making an overtaking pass there. So a bit odd there. But as we move on later now, end of lap 17 on to 18, trying to chase after Alonso. The Toro Rosso finally comes into the pit lane then, so Alonso will be released and have some clean air possibly, along with the McLarens also in. So we're up into P4. It's the two Red Bulls, 1 and 2. Alonso P3. Yellow flags though. Look at that on the minimap there. I think that was the yellow flag around the swimming pool section. And in the past, in this same career mode, there's been some safety cars out because of pile-ups around that area. And what you know, there you go, safety car, called it. I knew that was going to happen because I saw that mini-map section, and I think it was like season 5, I think it was. We had an exact pile-up at that part of the circuit. Last season, it was a pile-up up the hill to Casino Square, and then season 5, I remember, was swimming pool, and it's going to be because of this then. You can see a big train forming behind the Brendan Hartley, the McLaren, with the front wing off. He obviously hit Hamilton, and so that's why he has no front wing, and he's going to smash the wall on the left-hand side, cause a pile-up there with the Haas getting through, but then my teammate Leclerc getting held up. Verstappen behind has been slammed into the wall. The other Mercedes also been caught up. Vettel's been caught up in there. Really unfortunate for my teammate to be caught up right behind the McLaren. There you can see Verstappen has no tyre on his car, and so that is a big pile-up, and that's actually a lot of DNFs because there's only now 14 runners in this Grand Prix as we get going again and go green for the safety car coming in on lap 21 then. So the safety car was out for 3 whole laps then, and to try and clear up that debris then. And so we get going again in P4. Alonso, like I said, P3. The two Red Bulls still lead 1 and 2. Gasly leading Carlos Sainz, but now we are going to try our best to hold on to Alonso, but we're on super softs, and all 3 of these guys are on ultras. And like I said, I think the tyre wear is so good now in Season 8, and like I said, I think the AI had also default 1 stops, that these guys are going to go to the end of the Grand Prix maybe on ultras. I was thinking maybe under the safety car, like, oh, hang on, they might pit a second time now because they're on ultras, and I might get the lead of the Grand Prix, and then we can try and defend it to the end of the race and get a 3rd race win in a row. But alas, as we move on to lap 25, it becomes pretty apparent that these guys have a lot of good pace on ultras, and they're not really getting too much tyre wear, and so they are probably going to go to the end of the Grand Prix on those ultras. So we're just going to do the best job we can. We've got Daniel Ricciardo, who's not going to face us too much of an issue, and so we go to the end of the Grand Prix. Gasly takes the checkered flag to win the Monaco Grand Prix, the first Red Bull Honda win of Season 8, which is quite odd to think because Gasly is the reigning world champion, but we're going to come through then in P4, and so Alonso is going to gain some points on us. So in that case, So in that way, a little bit unfortunate, but at the same time, I can't complain. It was a frustrating Grand Prix at the very start, and we made the most of it, and we made some really nice passes on some of the midfield cars earlier on the Grand Prix. So we take the checkered flag for P4 at the Monaco Grand Prix.
Okay, good job, mate. Really well done. That was a fantastic drive.
It was a magnificent race and a drive right out of the top draw to take the win for Red Bull today. And Anthony Davidson, give me your thoughts. How did they accomplish this result?
Well, you know what they say, to finish first you have to finish. And that fact was clear today, with lots of retirements having a big effect on the outcome of the race. As a driver, you tend to keep reliability concerns to the back of your mind and just focus on what's in front of you. But for the teams, races like this can be very stressful.
So like I said, we made the most of a very tricky Monaco Grand Prix. In the end, Leclerc, even though despite being held up in that crash, actually gets some okay points there. And so in the Drivers' Championship, you can see Alonso does extend the lead by a few points there. So that is actually still quite a gulf to climb. You know, remember, we've had 2 wins in a row, and usually in previous seasons, 2 wins in a row would see you take the lead for sure. But we're still so many points away from Alonso because he got 3 wins on the trot at the very start of this season. So he's still got a mountain to climb, really, in context to relative previous seasons in career mode. Constructors-wise, we're still there in second place with the Alfa Romeo Racing team, but the Renaults have still been pretty damn good. Alonso, especially, has been so consistent so far this season. Absolute monster. But towards the end of the episode, then we get extra 600 points for qualifying 3rd or above from probably the previous Grand Prix that was for our contract there. So we get extra 600 points naturally from the contract negotiations we did, and so that's going to see us have enough points then to upgrade the front and rear downforce of the both major kind, and that will come in for the French Grand Prix, and that will see us complete the entire aerodynamics program and R&D upgrade path for us here at Alfa Romeo Racing. So the only things we have left to upgrade are reliability and a few last bit of the chassis upgrades there. So that's going to be pretty good for Paul Ricard, and obviously after the Canadian Grand Prix, we'll get an extra 1,000 points for obviously winning a Grand Prix before then. That was obviously stated at the very start of of the season from Alfa Romeo. So all in all, can't complain. Solid episode. Obviously lost some ground, but I'm hoping Canada next episode could be the one. Obviously one of my favourite circuits on the calendar, so I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully we can take the fight to Fernando Alonso then. But till then, guys, if you did enjoy this episode, smash that like button. Let me know your thought in the comments below. If you are new around, subscribe for weekly full-on content. I've been aarava. Hope you enjoyed today. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.